Alright, what up guys? This is a little bit of a different video today, but it's a video that I've been wanting to do for a little bit here now. So back in November, a little more than half a year ago, I decided to upgrade my gaming controller. So yeah, previously I was using, I think this is an Xbox One controller. I don't know, it's hard to keep track of all the different Xboxes these days. The Xbox controllers were basically my go-to ever since the Xbox 360 more or less. I started off using Xbox 360 controller on PC, upgraded to a Xbox One controller, and that's been my controller up until this last November when I decided to see what maybe some other options were like. And honestly, the main thing that really drew me to not only just this specific controller, but to a new controller in general, is just the ever-going struggle with analog controls, right? Like using these potentiometer analog controls, it works, but there's obviously some room for improvement. And coming from like simulator racing world and all that stuff, and flight simulators and stuff like that, I'm very familiar with Hall effect sensors in controllers, whether they're flight joysticks or racing wheels or whatever. And obviously the technology has gotten better and has moved beyond just simple potentiometers. And that was part of the reason why I wanted an upgrade. I wanted something that used Hall effect sensors. The thing I settled on, actually after seeing a Linus Tech Tips review on a bunch of different controllers, the one I ended up settling on was the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C wireless controller for Windows PC and Android with 1000 Hz polling rate, Hall effect joysticks and triggers, and remappable L4, R4 buttons. Mint, right? Long ass title, but anyways, yes, the 8BitDo, whatever you want to call it, Ultimate 2C wireless. As the name suggests, it has not only Hall effect sensors for the joysticks, but it also has Hall effect sensors for the triggers, which is pretty huge for somebody who plays racing games a lot. The modulation of the trigger is honestly everything when it comes to racing games. So that was really, really huge for me specifically, and really like the main reason why I wanted to upgrade controllers. But anyways, yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It's got just like a normal wireless mode, or it can use 2.4G, or no, it uses 2.4G wireless, or it can use Bluetooth rather. That's the thing. And yeah, aside from the Hall effect buttons, the other thing you'll notice is that it does actually have an L4 and R4 button, which is kind of a weird one, because the only thing you can actually use those for is mapping a different controller button to. So like you could map like the R3 button to, or the L3. I guess that's L3. That you could like map your L3 to the L4, or you could map something like the A button or the B button or whatever. You could basically map any of these buttons to L4 and R4. They're not actually like individually mappable buttons. So like that was one of the reasons why I actually chose this specific controller, is because I saw it had the L4 and R4, and I thought it was going to be a bit more useful than it ended up being. As far as like disappointments in this controller goes, this is honestly basically the only one disappointment I have with this controller. And there's like another half disappointment that I'll get into here soon. Alright, so real quick, I just remembered something that I wanted to include that I completely forgot about. It's another like little pro-con thing. So one of the first things here that you'll notice is that we do actually have this like metal band around the joystick, which is actually like pretty nice just as like a wear component. Although this little ring around here is still plastic, but it looks like something that could potentially be replaced. We can get some focus going on there. But let me show you the actual con of this. So one thing that you'll notice about this controller, if you've ever been like playing a game and things are getting like kind of serious and heated, and you're like everything's getting like intense in the moment, and you start pressing buttons a little bit harder, you start pressing the joysticks a little bit harder, right? So like this happens a lot when I'm playing like MX bikes, holding forward and steering, because it gives you a little bit more precise control of steering. But like sometimes like you'll be like in the middle of like a race and like things are getting heated, and so you're like pushing forward like a little bit more than like you would normally, and like it actually doesn't take a whole lot of force to do this, but this actually comes off the top if you press on it far enough. So that is actually one more like catastrophic problem that I've had with this controller. Not catastrophic and like, oh no, the controller broke, but like catastrophic in the sense that like if you're in the middle of a race, the last thing you want to happen is like, whoa, what happened to my joystick, right? Like that's kind of a crazy feature that like I really kind of wish they just didn't have it like this, Like I'm sure this is great for like when these things get worn out and you need to replace them or whatever. Like being able to replace these components is probably better than not being able to replace these components, but this has been a problem more than it's been a solution. You know what I mean? Like, I have to be mindful of how I use the controller, otherwise that'll just happen, right? You know, you're trying to play a game and the joystick comes off. That's really not something you want to happen. So really that's probably like the biggest issue that I have with this controller as far as things that actually impact gameplay. Like, that shouldn't be so easy. Like, that really shouldn't happen at all, if we're being completely honest, but it definitely shouldn't be that easy. But yeah, I was really hoping the functionality on these L4 and R4 controls would be like literally any other button. But it's really just an internally programmable thing. So it's programmable from within the controller. It's not actually programmable like in like the firmware in the computer. It's only programmable from the controller. Like, you hold down like a certain button, and then you like press this button and that button, and it'll like map that. But something like, I forget exactly how the song and dance works, but essentially it's just another way to press an existing button. I feel like it works really good for R3 and L3 since often those buttons, it's really hard to press those buttons without accidentally moving the joystick, and sometimes that matters. So I actually just have those mapped to L3 and R3 if I remember correctly, but you can map them to something like A, B, X, Y, anything like that. So like you could use these buttons to shift or something instead of A and B or whatever, right? With the only other caveat being, I think the D-pad is like kind of weird because of the way it works. Like because like you can go like up, down, and then it also kind of has this like diagonal direction if you like press it that way. If you press like kind of like up in like the corner here a little bit, it'll like sometimes give you like the diagonal input by just like pressing the button like slightly off to the side. So that's kind of a complaint. I don't think I've ever really experienced that with like the Xbox D-pad. If anything, it's like almost like really challenging to hit that diagonal button on a D-pad if it even exists at all. I mean, obviously there's a gap there, but the gap here is like honestly pretty huge, right? So it makes it a lot easier to do diagonals if you want to do diagonals, but it also makes it a lot easier to do diagonals on accident. So that's something to like mention, I guess, but I honestly don't really have any problems with that because I don't use the D-pad all that much. The other sort of half problem that I have, and I call it a half problem because it is still an improvement, even though we do get shorted a little bit here, quite literally. So like it's pretty hard to like get a really good perfect measurement of this, but like you can kind of see like in general like how far the trigger moves. It's like a little bit less than a centimeter. It's not like really a whole centimeter, but it's pretty close to a whole centimeter. I mean, it's got about like not quite half the range of the other one, but it's like about like maybe like 2/3 of the range of the other one, something along those lines. You get a little bit less throw in the joysticks, but because they're Hall effect sensors, they are like still more accurate. This is actually a problem for me since like racing games are kind of the main reason why I wanted Hall effect sensors for like both steering and throttle and brake and all that stuff. Like literally two things would make this controller an honestly perfect controller, and it would be somehow having like actual mappable L4 and R4 buttons. Like if you could actually like map those individually, that would be sick as hell, and that would just be like the absolute killer app. Like no other controller would be able to compete with having like 3 R and L buttons, right? Like that would absolutely be literally game changing. And then just like literally putting more throw on the triggers. I have no clue why they made the trigger throw so short, especially like what was the point of putting Hall effect sensors on it if you were going to make it such a short throw? Like I don't get it. Like the whole point of Hall effect sensors is like precision thing, right? And you're going to like do something that like limits precision. I don't know, kind of weird. But anyways, those are the two controllers. Now what I want to do is kind of show you some stuff in game to kind of see how these two controllers compare. And we're going to start off with the 8BitDo real quick. We get to see what it's going to be like for me to switch back to the Xbox controller for the first time in like, I don't even know, like about half a year. So we are going to switch over to computer view now, and we're going to start playing some BeamNG. Actually, we have all of the telemetry stuff down here at the bottom actually. So we can actually see, like, so I'm going to like just kind of slowly pull the trigger. But you can kind of see, like, I mean, even though it's like a really short throw, I can still reach like basically every number. The nice thing about the Hall effect is that even though there's not very much throw, like it's it takes a very small amount of pressure to actually get a reading on the trigger. Whereas like a normal trigger, like you pull it a little, like there's gonna be like some spring back and all that stuff, and like you might not get like a really good reading, or like it might be really hard to like hold it in whatever place or whatever, right? This, it's like if you need just like 1 or 2% throttle, it's like actually not that hard to hold it at like 2, 3, 4%, something like that. So it would be, of course, even easier if we had a little bit more trigger throw, but that's like a good example of like how much precision and control you have. Like it's really easy for me to hold it at like a very specific small value, or even like some value like just under 100, right? Like if I just like wanted to hold it at like 90 or whatever percent throttle or something, like it'd be really easy to do that, right? The like main thing I want to show you real quick, actually, if I can remember how to change my view. There we go. I want to see if I can show you guys. Let me try a different car. Let me try a car that has way more like steering, you know? What I'm trying to show you guys is how like digital the input really is now. Well, one thing that you'll notice is that there is like a lot of jiggle, right? So like I'm really holding it as still as I can, but you'll notice there's like a little bit of jiggle in the tire. And I think that's because of like, it's like a digital thing, so it's like it's basically bouncing back and forth between like two values or whatever. There's a little bit of linearity going on here. It's like really hard to tell. Maybe they like changed something, but like the thing I'm trying to show you is that like it looks like a stepper motor, you know what I mean? Like you can see like each individual like digital point on like the rotational scale this way because of like how precise it is. Like you can see it like kind of notch between like little positions, like let's say it's like every like 1 degree is like a position, right? Like you can kind of see it notch between each like 1 degree position, right? Which I don't think happens with the pure analog controller, but with the Hall effect sensor, because it's like a digital thing, it can only really be like digital. Like it can only be like a specific value, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or like 0.51, 1.52, whatever the hell it is, right? It's like drawing an actual circle versus like drawing a circle with points. Like no matter how many points you add to the circle, it's still not technically a circle or whatever, right? And that's the problem that you get with digital steering like this. It's digital, right? Like there's no like in between the in between the in between. It's just you're going from whichever number it is to whichever the next number is, right? And you see the jump between those numbers. And then it also leads to weird stuff where like you might be jiggling between two numbers. And so that's really like the only real issue that I have with the controller as far as like actual gameplay is concerned. But it has more to do with just how like Hall effect sensors and just like digital input in general works. It's not really a fault of the controller, I don't think, because any controller with like a digital input is going to do something similar. But now that I've explained that weird little problem, we're just going to hop into a car real quick and drive around and just kind of, we'll see what it's like. Actually, you know what? Anyway, we're just going to do, I don't know if we're going to do like a whole lap, but we're going to do some driving. Just see how like my general handling and stuff is. Again, it's been a while since I've driven in the Beam and Diesel, so hopefully it's not too rough, other than shifting it with no clutch, but I always do that, so it doesn't even matter. Oof, oof, oof. See, that was just braking point. It has nothing to do with control. The bottom line, we're keeping control pretty well. Our turns are pretty accurate for the most part, other than the fact that I need to get used to this game a little bit. I'm like used to this controller enough that like it feels kind of natural. That was bad. That was too much speed into that turn. Anyway, but let's go hop into the Xbox controller real quick. This is the Xbox One controller, I believe. I'm not sure if I love it or hate it, but it does feel like really weird. Oh, first of all, let's see what the yeah, you'll notice that like the wheel doesn't shake at all. And it's like, not that it's like smoother, but like you don't get that like jitteriness between positions. Like obviously it'll like stop on whatever position you stop on, but that's not like jitteriness or whatever. Thing is though, it's really hard to get that like really precise control with it, right? Like if you're like really trying to like hit some like really precise controls, it like kind of jumps around a lot, right? Like the potentiometers like aren't consistent, so like, you know, just because like you moved a centimeter doesn't mean that like the potentiometer knows you moved a centimeter. Sometimes it's like, oh, you moved a little bit more than a centimeter, oh, maybe you moved a little bit less than a centimeter. It just kind of depends on how the potentiometer is feeling, right? But generally speaking, like across its range of motion, it's pretty smooth, but like it can be like kind of jittery when you're trying to like get to certain positions because it's like slow to do it, or it's kind of inaccurate. It's hard to explain without like actually feeling it yourself, but in like a certain way it's smoother, but in like another certain way it's not smoother. Like it's less accurate or less precise, but even though it's less precise, like the motion is a lot smoother between positions. That is what it is. Like it's going to be a lot harder to like accurately reach whatever position you're trying to reach, but generally speaking, it is like smoother just because it's not digital. And then like real quick with like the throttle and brake real quick, let's see, like I did just realize too that I never set my steering back to the proper, I had it set to 1.4 before. So now we'll have to do another test actually. So anyways, like, yeah, you can see, like it's a lot hard. Like if I wanted to just like do like 1 or 2 like on the brake or the throttle, it's actually like really hard. Like it jumps from like 1 straight to like 3 basically, right? Like it's going to be kind of skipping around, jumping around, especially at like the beginning and end of the throw, right? Like this thing may have like an extra like almost half a centimeter on the other one, but it's like if only you guys could see exactly what I'm doing. Like I have to let go of this thing almost like a 1/4 centimeter before it goes from 100 to like 99 or whatever, right? So like there's like a whole like, I don't know, 1/4 centimeter where like there's just dead zone in the throw. It's like all spring, no potentiometer, right? And same kind of goes for like the front of the of the stroke. There's like a little bit of spring. You go in like maybe it's a little bit less than like the other way. It's like maybe 1/8 of a centimeter you go in before it starts registering. So I would almost say that it's actually probably pretty close, like controller to controller, as far as like it feels like you have more throw in the triggers, but because there's like dead zones and stuff like that, it's actually probably pretty close to the same amount of throw, for being completely honest. And then yeah, of course you can also see that the Xbox controller isn't quite centered right, you know, so I let go of the controller and it centers like kind of off to the right there, which was actually part of the reason why I needed a new controller in general, is just because this thing was obviously like starting to get me some stick drift and whatnot. But like, yeah, you can kind of see how like things are like smoother because it's analog and not digital, but because it's not as precise of a mechanism, it still kind of like jumps around a little bit here and there. Yeah, you know, it's harder to hit like really precise like spots on there that you're trying to hit, but like the actual like movement is so much smoother since it's not like a digital movement, right? It's again like one of those things you have to like see and feel to like truly understand. But anyways, let's do a quick little lap here. It's gonna be a little bit more difficult because this thing is gonna be pulling to the right more or less the whole time. This actually doesn't feel too bad, I'm not even gonna lie. Oof, we are fishtailing a little bit more. It does feel like a little bit less precise in like the steering realm, I have to admit. Like the throttle and whatnot is harder to like, oh my god, dude, this is crazy. It's pulling so hard to the right. That's actually messing me up a lot here, I can't even lie. That's the thing, if you need a lot more like artificial dead zone when you're using a controller like this, because of how sloppy the joystick is, you have to actually add some dead zone to the center so that it's not pulling all over the place like that, which in turn means that you have like effectively even more range of motion with the Hall effect sensor controller, because you don't have to create like an artificial dead zone in the middle of your steering. So there's like that like 1 or 2% of steering range extra that you get with the Hall effect sensor, since you're not having to create any extra dead zones, right? And like it's just like all those little things add up to just an overall more precise experience. You know, obviously other than like the weird sort of like digital effect that you get from steering, it's definitely more than like counteracted by just like the overall added precision you have, right? Like even if that steering wheel is like technically like shaking a little bit by like 1 or 2 degrees as you're driving, you know, it's definitely overpowered by the fact that like your control is so much more precise that you're probably just not really crashing or anything like that, or like messing up your steering, right? So actually that went like pretty well. I'm gonna hop back onto the other controller real quick now that we have proper steering linearity set. Let's see how we do with the 8BitDo. Oh yeah, this just feels so much better. It feels like I can hold my line a lot better, except for when I like speed into the turn. And that's really like the biggest difference, is like how easy it is to just like hold and maintain like a certain like arc of movement, you know? Like with the analog controller, it kind of feels like you're always sort of shifting in and out of whatever like steering angle you're trying to actually accomplish. Again, I gotta figure out these braking zones. It has nothing to do with the actual controller, but like just in general, it's like, oh, I want to turn this way. It's like, oh, it's such a smooth like arc or whatever. You just kind of like hold it in the position and it goes. Whereas like with the analog controller, you're kind of like with like the analog controller, it kind of feels like you're constantly like sort of like readjusting your turn and like, oh wait, no, add a little bit more turn, add a little bit more turn, right? Whereas like the Hall effect sensor, you feel like more or less like directly connected to the control itself. It actually kind of feels like an intermediary between like a controller and like a steering wheel, you know? Like it feels like that level of direct input to where like it almost feels like you are actually directly controlling the car and not just like controlling a controller that's controlling the car. Again, it's one of those things that's like really hard to like portray on like video or like by explaining it. Like you really just have to like see it and feel it for yourself to kind of understand the differences there. Regardless, I super highly recommend this controller. It's pretty damn good. It doesn't even necessarily have to be this controller. Like, if you've been using like a crappy Xbox controller with potentiometers that have probably been shot for 2 years or whatever, right? Like, if you've been struggling with them dinosaur controllers for a while, bro, upgrade yourself to like a Hall effect sensor controller. Especially if you play like racing games or flying games or anything like that. Just the fact that the Hall effect sensors are there makes this just a 10 times better controller than any sort of like Xbox or PlayStation controller or whatever, right? And I honestly don't know how or why this controller can be $29.99 and be such a better controller than an Xbox controller. Whereas like the Xbox controllers have been around for like 25 fucking years now, and they still haven't figured out Hall effect, and like they still cost like $90 for a controller that has analog fucking inputs and shit. It's just kind of like embarrassing and sort of stupid, really. Like, how is Microsoft getting bested by some like $30 controller made by a brand that literally nobody has ever heard of, right? Like, that's embarrassing, but it's also stupid as fuck that like we're spending $90 on these controllers that they've been making for 25 years now, and like they still haven't really done anything to actually improve them, right? Like, we've just been like fucking suckers buying the same controller every single time they come out with a new console, and it's like $90 for a new controller every time. And it's just the same exact controller with a slightly different shaped case on it, really. The Xbox One controller might as well just be an Xbox 360 controller that has like slightly different like pieces of plastic attached to it, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they are quite literally the exact same mainboard. You know what I mean? The exact same potentiometers, the exact same like little button membranes and all that stuff. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if quite literally all that stuff was the exact same stuff and they just changed like the plastic shell and the plastic buttons, right? So yeah, do yourself a favor, get yourself anything other than like an Xbox or like a PlayStation controller, because there's definitely better stuff out there, and the better stuff out there these days is literally less than half the price of one of those controllers. And again, I can't really speak for the newer the newest generation, or even really PlayStation for that matter, because I haven't really used any of their controllers since like the PS2, honestly. So who knows, maybe like PlayStation's rocking Hall effect sensors these days, I don't know. Maybe even like the Xbox Series X is rocking Hall effects for all I know. I honestly don't know, it's been a while. I'm kind of out of the loop on the consoles, but especially if you've been playing with some of the older tech that still has potentiometers and you've been dealing with that for a while, do yourself a major huge favor, spend 30 bucks on a new Chinese controller that's chock full of Hall effect sensors, and you'll be crashing into walls just like me in no time. I was looking down at the controller. But yeah, anyways, there's really not a whole lot more to this video. Just wanted to give you guys the rundown of the new controller and how I've been liking it for the past half year. Some of the pros, some of the cons. It's mostly pros, but there are like a couple weird little caveats that come with this controller. Mainly it's just to do with like how Hall effect sensors work and how they're like technically a digital thing. Again, like, all the positives of having a Hall effect controller definitely outweigh any negatives that may be perceived by having Hall effect sensors. So yeah, anyways, that's it for this video. Just wanted to give you guys a quick little review of the 8BitDo, whatever you might call it, controller. Yeah, $29.99 on Amazon. Pretty hard to beat that. There's probably also other options too if maybe this doesn't quite tickle your fancy. Do some looking around, do some shopping around. 8BitDo is a pretty decent company. You know, get one that like resembles the controller shape that you like. Make sure it's got some Hall effect sensors, and you should have something pretty decent, I think. But yeah, no, anyways, for like the 5th time now, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, show the algorithm some love and hit that like button for me. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to stay up to date on all my latest gaming content. Of course, for as little as 99 cents a month, you can become a channel member and help support the channel monetarily. On that note, I'd like to give a special shout out to my active channel members. Thank you all for your continued support. It is definitely greatly appreciated, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.